Hey friends, it's Wanetah. Today I wanted to put together a compilation video of some recent transfer projects that I've done as gifts that I've made for this past Christmas. I wanted to talk a little bit about that because, as you may know, making art for yourself is really fun and fulfilling, and I hold myself to the same standard, even if it's just for me. But I don't have to question whether or not I'm gonna like it or question the color, the theme. When you're making something for someone else as a gift, it's even different from a commission piece or, doing custom work for someone who says, I like purple plants, So you don't have to guess, what colors they like, what subject matter they like. And making gifts for people, obviously, a little bit, right? Hopefully. Making a gift for a stranger would be nearly impossible. But I just had to remind myself that I know a bit about the colors they love by what they wear, what they have in their homes, themes, subject matter. I know that they like Chihuahuas. I know that they like birds. What I really like about it is, as an artist, I like that it gives me the opportunity to just trust my instincts, to show someone my perspective of what reminds me of them and, how I see them, right? So I have to find a happy medium between something that I like, that I'm going to be proud to give away and present as a gift, but also something that I think that they will like. And so I think that's a really good practice in just trusting yourself and having the confidence, even when you're uncertain of exactly what someone wants. And at the end of the day, they are going to love that you thought about them. And for me, it just made Christmas even more special for me, as well as hopefully for them, because, Christmas is great, but I get a little taken aback from the whole idea of I can tell when someone gives me a gift because they think they have to give me something. There was no thought put into it, and I'd rather you save your money. I'm that way. I love my stuff, but I'm very particular about my stuff, and I try to only have things that I love in my home. And, I'm very respectful of my money as well, and I don't want to just throw it at someone, So this was a really special way of me just going above and beyond and trying to make Christmas a little extra special while making people I love know how special they are to me. So as nerve-wracking as it can be and anxious as it can make you, I recommend trying it out because it just made last Christmas that much more special, So without further ado, I hope you enjoy my transfer projects. All right, the first thing I did was go into Midjourney to create my image. If you've never used Midjourney, don't be intimidated. If you'd like a full tutorial from a non-techie like me, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, there are fantastic YouTube videos out there already. But for this video, I created my own customized image of a Chihuahua. Actually, I created 4 Chihuahuas because I wanted to put a different one on each coaster. Once I had my images, I moved over to Canva. Now, I have a Canva Pro account, but you absolutely don't need one to do this. I used Canva to customize the size of the images, and then I laid the 4 images onto an 8.5 by 11 inch document because that's the size of my Sunnyscopa transfer paper. Now, if you're only creating 1 image, that will make it even easier for you to format it on your paper. Next, I got these wooden coasters at Hobby Lobby. I painted them white to make sure the images would pop. I'm not sure if it made a huge difference, but it definitely made the edges look more polished and finished. I found Sunnyscopa's transfer paper to be really easy to work with. I did have a few mess ups where the paper couldn't be separated from the adhesive page for some reason, but overall it worked really well. If you've used another transfer paper you love, let me know in the comments, and I'll be sure to add a link when these become more available in the US. With Sunnyscopa transfer paper, one side is textured. It's rougher than the other side. The rough side is the side you want to make sure you print on. Another important detail, because of how the transfer paper works, all images will be flipped from left to right. This matters when you're printing text or anything that needs to face a specific way. So, for example, if your Chihuahua is facing left in your original image, it will end up facing right in the final result. Your text will end up being backwards. So just be sure your image is flipped before you print. Now here I'm just using my regular DeskJet printer. It's nothing fancy, but it worked fine for this project. I just made sure I was printing on the correct side of the paper, which is the rough side. The images printed beautifully. I was really happy with the color quality. And so next I just grabbed the adhesive sheets that come with the Sunnyscopa. Now this stuff is super sticky, so once you place it, it is not moving. So be sure to take your time and align it carefully. After placing the adhesive, I smoothed it out and I cut out my images. And then I peeled off the backing and I applied the transfers to the coasters. Now this is why it's crucial to double check that your images are printed correctly and flipped if necessary. And now for the rubbing. If you've never used transfer paper before, just know that you'll be rubbing a lot more than you see in this video. But I will say with Sunnyscopa, the backing paper peeled off really easily and the image transferred beautifully. See how quickly I'm peeling it off? That's not always the case with transfer paper. Yay, it's so cute! For the final step, I sealed the coasters with Mod Podge clear acrylic sealant. You can also use polyurethane for a stronger finish. I want these coasters to be functional, so I'll see how they hold up over time. If I make them again, I might use something more durable just to be safe. And here are the final results. I think they are so adorable. Let me know in the comments what you think. Now it's time to wrap them up. My family loves turquoise, so I am making that happen. In case you're wondering, this was an image I printed on canvas, about the same size as the coasters. It was a small keepsake of Jessie, our late friend. The photo quality wasn't perfect, but these transfers actually work really well on canvas. If you have a high quality image, it'll pop even more. And so of course, this video is dedicated to our little friend Jessie. So the first thing I did was give it a good clean and then sand it down. So I'm just using 220. And then I started to prime it. It was pretty dark to begin with. And then I got smart and used my roller. So I'm using Magnolia Home Ella Rose chalk spray paint, and it's such a pretty color. You'll see me spraying this and it doesn't look like anything is changing, but in the end result, you'll see how pink it is. Now I'm cutting my transfer out very carefully. Like I said, I'm only using the large cow for this and perhaps a few of the greens. This is where I realize that I'm going to have to line everything up perfectly, and this will be the first time that I have to do that. So here it is, I'm just analyzing it, and then I also have to put it very centered on this board, and the cow's head is slightly tilted, so made me a bit nervous. And of course, this is in fast forward where I'm just rubbing away. So it took me quite a while because the transfer was quite large, and I'm just making sure I'm getting the edges. And this of course is in fast forward. So here what I'm doing is, because I don't want to scratch up the wooden sign with my stick, I'm just taking the transfer backing paper and I'm covering the edges so that I can rub more thoroughly without worrying about scratching up the sign. I'm almost finished. So I noticed that there were some bumps happening I did my best, but those were just not going to get flattened. And you know what? It kind of added, like all these stick marks, it kind of just added to the vintage feel. So I didn't mind it. And I'm just making sure I have the edges down really clear because this is the part that has to connect perfectly. And here I am, nervous. Like, yes, does it fit? Yes, it fits. Is it gonna fit? And then I got smart, of course. You see how there's white edging? It doesn't quite tell you exactly where it's going to go, but once you take off the backing paper, it's much easier. Like I said, it was my first time, so I was just really nervous about it. Is it gonna fit? Is it gonna fit? And you know, this you really have to place down to see that it fits. So it's a commitment once it lands. Not always, but this is a large piece, so it would be hard to pull up and pull off, and it could cause some paint to come off. And just rubbing away. So ReDesign, I noticed, I mean, their transfers are really quality. It does take quite a bit, for me at least. The transfer doesn't come, you know, pulling off very quickly. Usually it takes a lot of rubbing and just making sure that, you know, once you pull up, the transfer is actually staying. And it's on there exactly where I want it to be. Good job, Wanetah. And now it's time for the letters. And so this is going to be even trickier because life is, and the farm is not going to be the same size. And so I started with the middle, of course, and decided where I was going to place them. And I knew it didn't need to be exactly perfect, especially for this style piece, but I wanted it to be as symmetrical as possible. And so, you know, for me, like, I'm always questioning, where does the last word line up with the cow? And then where does the first word line up with the edge? And so this was a bit tricky, but you'll see in a second. I think it turned out really nicely. See, it's coming up, so you know you didn't rub enough. Ta-da! And then I just used a ruler to try to place it as straight as possible and line it up with the other side. Looking pretty good. So I didn't show you this rolling pin before, but I used Succulent by Folk Art, and I love this color. And I decided to paint the rolling pin, and the rolling pin is another that I got from a random flip. And I used this green transfer on it, and it just turned out so pretty. So for the floral, I was really eager to use as much as possible, and if it were for me and not a gift, I probably would have used a lot more, but I wasn't very sure if she was an artificial flowers kind of girl. I forgot to get footage of us putting on the handles for the rolling pin, and that is the part that actually took so much longer. Because I had to get the right hooks in. And here I'm just painting, I believe it's the washer that was silver, and I'm just painting it gold. And for that E6000, Old Faithful, just putting a lot of it on these flowers because they're quite heavy and they have a lot of plastic on the back. You know, I just decided to go as subtle as I could with the floral, and I think it was just right at the end. So here's the final result.
Using
Doing transfers is easy, but the real creativity comes in how you place them, and the skill is in cutting them just right. Since some images are connected, you have to carefully cut them so each one looks complete while keeping the leftover pieces looking good too. I've measured the box, and this large piece fits perfectly on one of the sides, which is great because less cutting is always better. I think this single flower will look great in the corner, leaving just enough blank space to give the eyes a place to rest. Make sure to rub the edges well before peeling off the backing, especially if they have sharp or pointy tips. And I thought adding a little grass at the bottom would help separate the flower on the ground from the birds in the sky and the trees, creating a full environment. Then I found another full piece that fits perfectly into the corner for the other side. I just love this hummingbird. It's my favorite piece from the transfer. I wanted to put it on the front, but I couldn't bear to cut it since it was too big to fit on a drawer. And I am so glad I didn't because it really tells a story here. I think this piece beautifully shapes the whole composition with its curves fitting perfectly into the corner like that. I just love how this side turned out. It took me a while to choose the right large piece for the top of the box, but all the thinking was worth it. It turned out so lovely. I wanted something full but not too busy for the front of the box. I also had to account for the handles taking up space. So at first I thought I'd have to measure and cut the image beforehand, but then I realized I could just use an X-Acto knife and cut it once it was already on the box. Duh. So you see that blue line? That's me measuring for no reason. I waited so long for these handles to arrive from Etsy. I wanted gold because I was inspired by kintsugi with blue and white china, but I didn't love the gold, and they ended up being too big anyway. I decided to stick with the original handles because they were the perfect size, and it made sense to keep the box looking like a filing cabinet since that's its best function. But the handles were all scuffed up, so I tried rub and buff for the first time, but it didn't work for this. So then I tried hand painting them silver. Next, I used clear wax to protect the transfers from wear and tear. I applied it all over to give the box a nice sheen and a polished finish, and then I let it dry for 24 hours. Now it was time to add the drawer liners, but I struck out so many times with this flimsy paper I got from Temu. I tried to cut around the bottom of the drawer with an X-Acto knife, but it didn't go through, so I had to use scissors instead. As soon as I peeled off the paper, I knew I was in trouble. It was so flimsy, and when I finally got it down and started rubbing it, it scratched up the paper. I tried again, but there were so many air bubbles. It took me 3 tries, but I finally got the hang of it. Once it was going, it was easy and fun to work with, and I could finally get the bubbles out quickly. But as I was peeling the side off, the adhesive from the back of the liners stuck to the side wall, and I tried using my Scotty Pillar to scrape it off, but that didn't work, so I used my X-Acto knife to pick it off, and then I had to repaint over all of the scratches. But I didn't give up. I've finally got the hang of it, and I am so glad I stuck with it because I love the final result. Ta-da! So the drawers weren't sliding as smoothly as I wanted, so I used a loop stick to help them glide better. And as a happy accident, I used shellac primer because I was going to repaint the handles, but I ended up loving the matte white look, and it really elevated the box and just made the transfers stand out. And here's the final result. It turned out so lovely. I can't decide which side I love the most. Please let me know your favorite in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider liking and subscribing so you'll be notified for my next one. And until then, check this one out. Bing!